Welcome to Excellence Through Execution, where ambition meets expertise. Hosted by Jason Weseman, this podcast dives into the world of business, exploring the stories of success and the lessons of failure through engaging discussions. Each episode, Jason brings insights from the forefront of business strategy and leadership. Get ready to discover the keys to business excellence.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Excellence Through Execution podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Weseman, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Austin Kreinz, founder and CEO of Atomix, a startup offering fulfillment services to e-commerce brands here in Milwaukee. Austin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Really looking forward to having a discussion with you.
Cool. Yeah, I looked up your stuff. It looks like you got some pretty innovative stuff going on. That's awesome. Love to hear about the cutting edge stuff. Really excited to learn more about you and your organization. Why don't you kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what Atomix does?
Yeah, so my name is Austin Kreinz, as you mentioned. I started Atomix about 4 years ago, almost to the date so far. And again, we focus on the e-commerce and consumer brand experience in terms of fulfillment and operations. So essentially, if you're a brand and as you're scaling and growing out of infancy, you kind of come to a crossroad and have a decision of, hey, do I sign a lease, get a warehouse, get the software to run it myself, or do I look to an expert in the field, a third-party fulfillment company? And that's where Atomix lives in that market. And we try to differentiate ourselves around a few core pillars. One in particular, technology. We've built our own software in-house. And the second is really just understanding the modern consumer brand and what do they need in terms of a customer experience, in terms of the physical pack out of their custom packaging and what their end customer is getting, or if that's just providing more automation or more personalization and high touch. So we've been off to the races for about 4 years. Kind of fast forward to today, we operate almost 100,000 square feet of warehouse space. We have 60,000 square feet in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We opened a facility on the West Coast in Salt Lake City, Utah, about 90 days, maybe 120 days ago now. And looking to expand in the future to the East Coast and then internationally after that. Our team's about 50 team members, and just kind of heads down to work.
Oh, very cool. So you, like a lot of people that I talked to, you kind of got started right during the pandemic. Do you think that was, given your business model, was that good or was it bad for you? You think it was a positive?
So I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, is you should really be driven by what's best for you at the timing or anything. And I think what's almost ironic for us is there was a boom in e-commerce and ordering online, and that's what COVID kind of forced the country and the world to do. But ironically, it wasn't as a big a boom as I think others would imagine, because we were a little late to it. As we were a new player in the space, really just trying to cut our teeth on getting a client to ship anything and ultimately to trust us as a partner. So we definitely had our work cut out early of losing deals, winning a few, not as many as we were losing. But really just staying at it. So I think that moment and period of time during the pandemic, it did increase adoption of e-commerce and consumers buying. And so I think we're still continuously kind of riding that today. But it wasn't as great as maybe it would seem of starting it during the pandemic.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be great, but if you didn't have this stuff in place, I guess it's going to take some time to get that up and running, right?
Yeah, and I think just a funny anecdote on that is when I started this company, my dad runs with his brother and business partner a last mile delivery company in Milwaukee, and I started with a few hundred square feet that I could kind of get at their facility. It had an old office there, and so didn't have too much kind of behind me, but a little fake it till you make it. And I think ultimately we knew that we could kind of deliver on the value prop that we were offering to the market, but had to make us seem a little bigger than we were at that time.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. Fake it till you make it. So let's kind of talk about the path that got you here to entrepreneurship and business ownership. Did you do a traditional, corporate path? Did you work for somebody else for a while and then say this is time for me to do something else? Or how did you get here?
So I grew up around my dad, who started that delivery company that I mentioned. He started that back in 1998 with his brother. Now, growing up, I never probably even fully understood what he did or envisioned that, hey, I want to get into the transportation and supply chain space. I don't really think it's the sexiest industry that people are really trying to get into. And So for me, as I went to college, I played lacrosse in college, and after I graduated, I started my career in corporate finance at a bank in New York City. I knew my career was always going to go entrepreneurial, but at that time for me, as I didn't have that idea or even that much money where I could really go all in on something. And so I started in finance. I ended up falling into the consumer retail and restaurant group. Um, and as we were working more with those brands, I got really deep into it and then got the idea of, hey, I want to start my own brand. Now, again, I didn't have that brand or idea that it was. I said, hey, let me learn from a company that is newer, that is a brand that I admire, and I also knew the owners of it. So I left finance, and I think my boss and some other partners there were kind of like, you're crazy, going to in an apparel startup and basically selling just t-shirts. But I really was able to see the different parts of how they were able to build that business. I was like the 11th employee there, so I was helping open up pop-up retail stores. I was helping with some operations, from customer service to growth, and I did that for about a year, and that's when the pandemic hit, and that brought me home. And so as I was back home in the Milwaukee area, I spent some time around my dad's business. And my first joke of that, I was like working around them. I'm like, the software you guys are using, I feel like is built in the 90s, like this Windows technology. But like they've had a really solid and successful small business. And it's like, well, how are they able to kind of achieve and maintain that success without maybe the level of technology that I think the world has kind of gone to? And I think that taught me a really important principle of just the value of partnership, the value of businesses working with one another, and really having a true relationship. And I think that can be applicable to really any business in the B2B space. And so that was probably the most important takeaway that I had around their business. But for me, I was like, all right, I feel like there's an intersection here for me personally of the e-commerce world that I've seen, and working with a 3PL partner, and then seeing the logistics at my family's facility, and basically kind of studied the market a little, and it's a highly competitive space, and kind of realized that I thought there was a gap in where technology and customer experience could be better, just morphed into each other to provide an encompassing solution that prioritizes both of those things equally. And that's really what we've kind of been focused on building.
That's awesome. Would you say, like, was there one thing that kind of one spark, one point that you said it's time for me to take the leap, or was that kind of a gradual thing?
I think it was gradual at that time, because I had my hesitancies.
Yeah.
Like growing up, as I gravitated towards starting these lacrosse camps with my other brother, trying to start these software apps, and I always loved like kind of that tinkering, and I probably didn't even know it was like entrepreneurship, but of doing that, like that's like what gets me up in the morning. And
Yeah.
so I think when I had that opportunity during the pandemic, I'm like, hey, this might not be like the best time in the world and the economy, but for me, it's like I can go all in on something. I'm living in my mom's basement. I can wake up every single day and think about this company, and like furthermore, it was more or less just to myself to prove that I either can do it or can't. Like I don't want to look back in 30 years and say, hey, I wish I would have tried something. It was like,
Sure.
hey, let's take this opportunity. If it takes me a year, 2 years, 3 years, well, maybe if it's 4 or 5 and I'm not having success, I might have to reevaluate what I'm doing for a job. But for me, I'm like, hey, this is an opportunity for myself. And so I had my, like I said, hesitancies, there was risk to it. But I think at one point it was just like, all right, here we go. This is the idea. This is what I'm going to go all in on. And let's focus on getting the first client. And I think that's the most important lesson that I probably learned throughout of just like one, getting started, and
Yeah.
then two, of just taking one step at a time.
Yeah. Can't get the second till you get the first. What are some, you've been running this business for 4 years now. What are some of the misconceptions people have about running a business, about being the boss?
It's probably not as glamorous as most people think. Um, I kind of say that joking because there are benefits to it, for
Sure.
sure, and hopefully in the future that the company is successful, that it can have that, and so that there is a piece of kind of freedom, ownership. But I think of depending on what type of company you want to build, whether that's a high growth company or a lifestyle one. For me, of like, there's a lot of sacrifices that I think have to be made in order to kind of achieve like my goal and our team's goal here to be a high growth, bootstrapped company, and sacrifices, whether that's with family time or friends or just time in general. And so I think understanding just that level of sacrifices of hopefully, like, I believe that work will be rewarded in the future. I could totally be wrong. I think that's what makes us crazy in one part to pursuing entrepreneurship. But yeah, I mean, it can, it's a roller coaster. And I think that's what's almost, uh, my fiance kind of jokes with me about this, of like how I can kind of operate pretty calmly in chaos. That I kind of, like if I had a choice, I wouldn't choose chaos over in normal life, but
Yeah,
that like
good.
no knowing that it's like, hey, that's what comes with this, of hey, there's going to be a client that's upset at 11 p.m. and I'm going to get on the phone with them. There's going to be an employee that um does something crazy or bad, and it's like those things, like it's going to be a roller coaster. You're going to have your highs and like highs of highs, and celebrate with the team. And uh,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have lows that you're gonna have to get through, and I think the last point I'll mention is the importance of a support system around you, whether that's a family, whether that's a significant other, whether that's friends, whether that's a mentor or advisor, even knowing that like you're not alone in the journey. There are so many people that have visions and missions to do great things in the world, but it's going to be tough, and hopefully you're rewarded for it. But yeah, I think it's some of the misconceptions.
That's the plan. Yeah. Get rewarded at some point. How do you usually got a fiance? How do you maintain that work-life balance between running a business and bootstrapping a business and, trying to have a happy future wife, happy life?
You'd probably say I'm terrible at it. I think it's why I do entrepreneurship, for the growth and learning of it. I've certainly, the business is in a different point than the first time her and I were together, where it was like, hey, I'm looking back on it, it's like, hey, I know what I'm aimed towards, but I have to spend every, or at least like in my head, I believe that I had to spend every minute just to kind of, it was really only me and like another friend of mine, like trying to make this work. And so there was um, a time requirement at that piece that I had to slowly grow and learn throughout it, that, hey, at the end of the day, like you have to have your priorities straight. And there's going to be times where the business needs me more, but there's going to be times that at a more consistent level that my fiance, family, my dog, even need me too. And I think there is an important piece of that balance. And The last anecdote for me is, hey, as we're prepping for Q4 here, we go to for 4 or 5 weeks, 7-day shift, or 7 days a week. We're working 2 shifts, and the holidays, like that's a sacrifice that we make, and I'm always going to make as I'm running this company. But being able to kind of plan our trips outside of that period of time, and 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 planning. So I think that the two keys are just planning and prioritizing, and being able to balance of understand what's really necessary of your time, and being able to kind of trust of, hey, you're going to wake up, the business is still going to be there. If you don't give your significant other or your friends enough time, they may not be there.
They may not.
And that's, yeah.
That's a great point. That's well stated. Well, you kind of talked about international expansion. Can you offer some other glimpses into your future plans and goals for your business?
Yeah. In the next 18 to 24 months, I'd imagine we will have an East Coast facility. And at that point, it'll be further expanding our 3 nodes across the country. So from our current Milwaukee base to Salt Lake, and expanding on the West Coast, and then increasing the square footage on the East Coast, potentially for a 4th there. But I think when we think about the benefits and the consumer base that are both in Canada, by first and foremost, and then Mexico, and then Europe and the greater area there. Now, the international piece, I would probably say that's at 5 to 7 years. That is out there. We ship like to consumers internationally, like we'll ship orders there, but there has been some demand for customers there. And I think as I think about the next 5 to 7 years, I think we're going through an interesting phase right now in the next 9 to 12 months that we're looking to raise like the first outside capital. I think us being very strategic of how we think about that capital. It's been kind of a big point of pride for us of being able to do a lot with a little and bootstrapping it. But I think in terms of servicing the customers and the demand out there for our business, that'll help us hire better management or top tier talent, build out our software, offer a SaaS product in the warehouse management technology space, and then expand internationally in other areas faster. But again, we're being very precise about that. We've talked with a few partners, but nothing seriously at this point. But we're evaluating that.
Oh, interesting. So you're going through the process of looking at some venture capital. What's the time frame on that? Do you think that looks like you'll be taking on some new partners?
Sorry, I don't know why I got blurry. Trying to fix this. Hopefully we can cut this out.
There we go.
Kind of
Now
funny.
we're good. Bud.
So I would say 9 to 12 months. Again, it's been super high level conversations at this point. We have the most important part of the year coming up for us. So really focused on the business, was focused on our existing clients, and expanding our operations to Salt Lake earlier this year. So probably beginning of next year, really evaluate that deeper. And it's interesting even, not to go too deep on this topic, but of finding that right type of capital, because there's different pockets within the venture capital and private equity space. I think our business has grown pretty quickly, that we're starting to see some appetite from like an early stage private equity type of fund, or like a growth equity, as opposed to like an early stage private equity, or even a technology focused company. I mean, we've been profitable from our start. So having just some interesting dynamics of just our business and our growth targets. So we'll see what that. It matters less to us of what that partner kind of calls themselves, whether it's venture capital, growth equity, private equity, and more about just, do our values align, do our growth goals, and does our 5 to 10 year kind of trajectory align with their goals as well.
Gotcha. Well, being profitable is always attractive. So congrats on that from the start. That's impressive.
Thanks. And my last comment on that is like also why it's interesting to think through that, because I was growing up around my dad's business. They've quote unquote bootstrapped that they started in 1998, so just had their 26th anniversary year, and it's like I can easily see myself running this company for another 20 years too. So yeah, the options are there.
Well, it's been awesome, man. Really appreciate your time, Austin. Let me get you out of here on this. You made the jump 4 years ago to start Atomix. What advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey?
My first comment is always just get started. And I say that not to jump into something without a plan or kind of blind, but I would say majority of people that do aspire or have interest in entrepreneurship will weigh every single risk of what can go wrong. And I think if you look at it just from a traditional like risk of a, I don't know, call it like normal human being, or just like as you evaluate it, like it's going to overwhelm you. Like
Yeah.
that's it. And so I think with just understanding the risks that you want to get comfortable with, if you're comfortable with it, it really comes down just a different degree of risk management. In knowing that, hey, when you do get started, that you are all in on what that is it's not a, oh, I wish that, or I wish that. It's like, hey, be precise of where you're going to kind of aim yourself. But once you have that item or that thing or that I like service or product that you believe in, and just get started on that, because so much will change throughout that process of building. And I think the most successful like entrepreneurs have that ability to understand that that first idea you have might not be what that end product is that customers love, whether it's a software product or physical product. And so be really willing to listen to customer feedback. Now, not all customer feedback is created equal, and understanding that nuance of that, of, hey, you're going to be kind of taken in the wrong direction or the right direction, and so you got to have your values and fundamentals down, but be very open and adaptable. And I think finding that customer need, it is a journey. So first and foremost, just get started, and then I can get you another one.
You got a dog looking there behind you?
Is it Lieutenant? Yeah, he just plopped down. Oh, I can't see him.
Perfect.
Wait, where is he? There he
See,
is.
there we go.
Yeah, he's like a
That's
2-year-old
that's
golden
nice.
doodle. He's great. Yeah, I think I'll just end on, yeah, it's all about
Just
just,
do it.
yeah, just getting started. And then when you do it, I mean, there's a
Dog.
quote that there's a quote around like the principle and idea of you can go like far alone, but you can go even farther with a team. I think being open about what you're going through, like I said before, whether that's with different entrepreneurship groups, whether that's with other significant others, or even just on your LinkedIn community, of being open and kind of that building in public ideas. People want to come around and support you. And so you never know where opportunity is going to lie. So always just put yourself out there, and you'll be amazed by how many people want to support you, how many people will cheer you on, how many people will connect you with someone else. So I'd really just, yeah, be ready to bring on others, a part of your journey with you, and you can go far and do things.
I would say that's especially true here in Milwaukee. I just found that having lived other places, this place people they love to help you. They love to support you. They love a hometown kid and a hometown success story.
Yeah, and a shout out to the tech community in Milwaukee. I first, like, I spent quite a bit of time in the East Coast and in New York after college, and even during high school for a period of time. But coming back to it and really seeing what this city is doing from a support, from Founders Fest to retreats and different events, it really is. And so that's where it goes to, like, hey, put yourself out there, you're going to meet great people. And I really and am excited about the tech in the Milwaukee startup community and greater Wisconsin as well. We're often called the flyover states, and that's something even for us puts a little chip on our shoulder, and we want to make something great and impact the community and the greater state.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, Austin. I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to know your story.
Yeah, Jason, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you were great. You had a great story to tell. Well, that wraps up this episode of Excellence Through Execution. Thank you all for joining us. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.